We're back with another Q&A where we react to your questions and comments over the course of the last month. We got a lot of good stuff, including crazy bourbon, conspiracy theories potentially. We've got best palate practices, tasting notes, info. We're going to get a little personal. I think this is going to be a very insightful episode, maybe our best Q&A yet. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Stuff and Whiskey. I'm Erin.
I'm Josh, and we are back with another Q&A episode where we react to your questions and comments over the course of the last month. We've got some good ones today.
I love this
I think this
one.
is episode 8, and I think this episode is coming out in the month of April because we're ahead on our Q&As.
Oh, hey.
But leave your Qs that you want us to A down in the comments below.
Oh, wow, that sounds very sus.
For future episodes, and we'll get to them.
Yeah.
Let's get into these, though.
Okay, so this first one isn't actually a question. It's more of a statement. But 350 plus shelf bottles is a little bit more than a social sipper. Sideways, winky face.
Who said this? Let's get some shout outs.
This is from Edward Rice 146.
You think we've done these before. We've only done 7 before.
Thank you, Edward. And also, he's referencing the fact that Josh said I'm a social sipper and we have 350 bottles in our home.
Yeah.
That is true. I am a social sipper. He has 350 bottles in our home.
Yeah.
Question answered.
Yeah. This is interesting. I thought this would be fun to include because it's a little bit of insight into us if you watch our channel on any kind of regular basis. But you haven't even set foot in a liquor store other than once in the local Total Wine when it opened and we visited, and once to go in our local store because we run a date night.
Yes.
And then we tried to go to a speakeasy and it was like a 2-hour wait.
And so we went to go pick up some things to make our own drinks at home.
Right.
Yeah.
We rattled Luxardo cherry, so we went to go grab some of those at the local store.
So it's been a minute since I've been in a liquor store.
I think you've been in a liquor store twice in the last 3 years. I do all the shopping. The last time you poured yourself a drink, it's probably been forever
It was the water I get from our fridge with my in my Nalgene bottle.
Right.
That's the only drinks I get for myself. Josh pretty much makes all my other drinks.
Yes. Coffee in the morning. If you're having wine or whiskey or a cocktail at night, I'm going to pour that for you. So I take care of you in that regard.
To that statement, Josh has made comments that he's the whiskey nerd, I'm the social sipper. So I myself, while our home has 350 plus bottles of whiskey in it, I am still the social sipper because they're not really my bottles.
Right.
They're bottles that you've purchased with our money for our home, but I could take them or leave them.
Right. And you don't catalog the knowledge in your brain.
Correct.
Like, for instance, Chad and Sarah over at It's Bourbon Night. Sarah is as much a whiskey nerd as Chad or me.
She knows things,
right.
And I don't.
Right. You don't.
I'm just going to say that right now.
You know nothing.
I know nothing except what I like. I know if I drink something and I like it, I know that.
Right. But you have a really good palate because first off, you just have a good palate, but you've also tasted a bunch of whiskey over the years.
Yeah, just through time.
And you are also very strong in your opinions because you don't know whether you're supposed to like something or not.
Correct.
So you're pretty outspoken in that regard. But nonetheless, she definitely is the social sipper, whereas I'm more the whiskey nerd that if I know I'm drinking X distillery, I'm supposed to get Y tasting notes, which is why we do things blind. So that keeps me in the dark, gives you an honest opinion, and then you also get a little bit more, hopefully, less whiskey nerdy, more down-to-earth, relatable approach from Erin.
Exactly.
And it's oftentimes pretty entertaining as well. That's how we hope we bring something fun and informative and kind of different to the whiskey tube
space. We hope we provide value.
Yeah.
In that way.
All right.
What's
next?
So Mr. Zitro.
Okay.
I'm new to tasting whiskey. Can you describe barrel funk a little more? Funk, to me, has a negative meaning, like locker room funk. Yuck. Thank you for your question. And sometimes it is a little bit kind of yucky, but kind of in the way that, like, blue cheese is funky, but people eat it, or gorgonzola cheese has funk.
It's a fun word, gorgonzola.
People eat it. It's kind of that same concept. It is kind of funky, and it's not awesome, but it's also not disgusting.
Yeah, I like a good funky Gouda. I like to say Gouda too.
I don't particularly like Gouda.
Gouda.
Or blue cheese.
Gouda.
Or
say it
gorgonzola. You have to say it like Josh. Gouda.
Gouda. All right. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different kinds of funk. I mean, you've got your kind of funky cheese funk. Sometimes you say stinky feet, which is not my stinky feet, but kind of this slightly sour,
slightly sweet
earthiness type of vibe.
Yeah.
You've got There can be wet basement funk.
Yeah,
a wet log wood funk.
In a previous video, we've talked about like dry attic funk and wet basement funk. So there's different levels of funk. And while they're not altogether off-putting, they're also not altogether great.
On-putting. Yeah.
So yeah, funk means funk, and it's just different levels, different types.
And when we do say that, we do try to speak to that.
Which kind of funk we're getting, yeah.
Right. Because like my favorite type of funk is a slight kiss of barrel char funk, which if you think about a piece of charred oak, that black charred oak with just consider pouring water across that into a glass and then drinking it. There's no way that charred oak couldn't influence the flavor of the water. It's going to have this slight kind of burnt taste, like maybe a slight black coffee bitterness type of thing to it. And I like that. Some people don't like that.
Yeah.
So we do try to speak to that. And then there's like crafty funk, which I don't remember which video this was on.
Okay.
But there's a crafty funk too, where it can be kind of like a grainy. We've said it's like you're standing in a grain silo with wet grains around you, almost like a mildewy type of thing, and that's not good.
Right.
Or a barnyard type of funk.
Good. That is not good.
So yeah, just listen for the why. Funk is not enough. Funk is a note, like saying fruit is a note. You need to be more specific in what type of funk or what type of fruit you're getting if we talk about it.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and thank you for specifying that.
Yeah.
Okay, Sweet Oak 1205.
Speaking of sweet oak.
Or you said charred oak.
Well.
Yeah. Is it appropriate to bring open bottles to a large bottle share event? 100%. Yes, it is. I feel like every single bottle we bring to a bottle share has been opened because we open all of our bottles in our home. So, yes.
Yeah.
Bring whatever bottles you want, even if they've been opened. People will not care if it's been opened. They will drink it anyway.
Yeah. And
Thank you for your question.
I would say the only etiquette thing around that is do not bring bottles to bottle shares that you have bottle chugged out of. If you're drinking straight from the bottle, nobody wants to drink your backwash.
I would say probably don't do that, like as a general rule of thumb.
A lot of people do, though. A lot of people like to do it. We don't like to do it because we share.
As like a general etiquette thing, like don't pick your nose in public and don't bottle chug your whiskey. I mean, let's be honest.
But a lot of people do. I'm saying like a lot of channels do. A lot of people like to do that for fun. But in the context of a bottle share,
let's not share that.
Don't share that. Yeah. Okay. We personally share everything we open. So we don't bottle chug anything over here. But if we did, we would not take those to bottle shares.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So Soiner asked, I'd love to know what foods you like to avoid before drinking whiskey and what foods you think pair well with whiskey. I haven't found any foods that I like when drinking whiskey, but I do know to avoid some things like oranges before tasting because it hinders some things so much. This is a very good question.
This is a great question. This might be one of the best questions we've ever gotten.
Would you like to start?
I want you to say what you do before tasting whiskey.
Before tasting whiskey, I do nothing.
You just live your life like a normal person.
I live my life. I eat what I want. I generally don't tend to eat very many like I don't like a lot of Mexican food. So like Mexican food would be something I would say stay away from.
Which is crazy to me.
But I don't eat a lot of it. So I just eat whatever I normally eat and then I drink my whiskey.
You just live your life like normal.
Yeah.
Yes. Whereas for me, before we taste anything for the channel or I'm tasting anything in a critical setting, if I'm doing a blind flight, if we're doing a barrel pick or something like that, I always have the exact same meal that I eat beforehand, which is very bland.
Scrambled eggs.
And
a yogurt bowl.
with some blueberries, peanut butter crunch cereal, and honey drizzled on top.
Yes. So
mixed up.
Whiskey nerd.
Not
whiskey nerd.
And I always eat that an hour before we do any type of drinking. That's what I eat if it has anything to do with critical tasting. I'm not saying you should do that. But if I'm producing content for this channel and I want you to I like that you have a more normal approach, like I'm just going to live my life and do whatever I want. I'm too nerdy and neurotic for that. I have to eat the same bland meal every time beforehand so that I know my palate is neutralized and I won't eat other things. I will not because other things skew my palate. Now on a daily basis, if we're just going to sit down at the end of the night and have a pour, I'll eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I'll just live my life. But when it comes to making content for the channel, doing barrel picks, which if you're interested in our barrel picks, you can get access at our Patreon over at the video description link below.
Yeah, there you go.
The link in the video description below. That's how you say that.
You got it.
But yeah,
check it out.
So I take, anytime we're doing channel stuff, I take it very seriously, including our barrel picks.
Yes.
I want to be on top of that. in addition to that, we have a fantastic community. Maybe the barrel picks will entice you, but you should really join for the people. The people are what our community is all about.
Yes,
if you like our way of doing things on the channel, we got a whole lot of people who vibe with that, and they're over there, and you can get involved. People helping each other, talking whiskey, sharing samples, all kinds of good stuff down there. Now, pairings with whiskey.
Pairings. So, what I like to do, and this is going to sound so fancy, I like beef jerky with my whiskey.
What kind of beef jerky?
Specifically teriyaki beef jerky.
Jack Link's teriyaki?
But any beef jerky will do.
Okay.
Plain, anything. I like specifically teriyaki. It's my favorite. But I'll eat any beef jerky. So beef jerky and whiskey, that's my favorite pairing.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, I don't like whiskey with food, really. It's, to Swiner's point, like, I don't find that it pairs very well. The spice that is inherent in whiskey typically does not go well with food for me.
Yeah. So for us, like when we go out to dinner, we typically don't get whiskey with our meals.
Yep.
We'll either get something beforehand or after, but we won't get it with our meal.
Right. We typically do a cocktail before dinner and then a nice pairing of a glass of wine with dinner. And then after dinner, I'll have whiskey because I love whiskey with dessert. And whiskey goes well with any dessert in my mind.
It does pair well with dessert.
Let's go down the list. Pie, cakes, cobblers, chocolate,
mousses, creme brulee,
ice cream, creme brulee, tiramisu, whatever, you name it. Bourbon, rye, all whiskey goes amazing with dessert.
Scotch?
Yes, all whiskey goes amazing with dessert. I love it.
I feel like there's not much else we can say. I feel like that's a great question.
My favorite combination, and this is just on a day-to-day basis, is we'll have our meal, whatever, end of the night, sitting down to hang out, watch a show. I know you're going. I'll pour myself a glass of whatever's tickling my fancy that day, you know? If my fancy's getting tickled really good,
let's not go too far down this rabbit hole.
I will get myself a good pour, and then we have these dark chocolate and sea salt candy bar, or not candy bars,
chocolate bars.
Chocolate bars.
I think they're like the Theo brand.
70% cacao, dark chocolate and sea salt. 2 squares of that, and a good glass of bourbon that's got some age to it. You get the oak, and it's so good.
So to answer the question, beef jerky pairs well with bourbon, with whiskey.
For her.
Dessert pairs well with whiskey, specifically dark chocolate with sea salt. There you go.
Right.
Thank you for your question. It was a great one. Okay. Mr. Wonderful 774 asks, for cocktails, shaken or stirred? I will drink any cocktail you put in front of me. I have no preference. Do you have a preference?
I don't remember what James Bond said. Was he a shaken, not stirred kind of guy?
I don't know.
Anyways, I think so.
I think
so. That sounds right. We don't typically do a lot of cocktails. We're pretty old-fashioned in that regard, in that we pretty much only make old-fashions.
We'll do old-fashions, Negronis. I've recently gotten into Manhattans.
Yeah, I would say
Boulevardiers. And that's about it.
It depends on the cocktail. A Negroni or a Boulevardier stirred, but for an old-fashioned, I actually like a shaken old-fashioned. I know that is taboo.
Is that how you make them?
Yes, I know that's taboo. I know. But it just dilutes the whiskey a little bit. It gets the flavors to meld together a little bit. It gets a little colder. I tend to like them shaken. I know, again, don't kill me in the comments below.
I will say, I enjoy how he makes the old-fashioned. So if he says shaken, then I'm a shaken girl because he makes delicious old-fashions.
Let us know in the comments below your favorite shaken cocktails and your favorite stirred cocktails.
Yeah.
And let me know how crazy I am for shaking up my old-fashions.
No, I feel like you can do that. I like them. Thank you for your question. Okay, Ian Reynolds, 494 asks.
Oh, this is a good one.
I know that I periodically get burned out by whiskey content, whiskey tube nerd fights, etc. How do you personally deal with or avoid burnout without accumulating 300 plus bottles? And then personal note, this is the only channel I comment on, as it is devoid of the negativity that is rampant online. Cheers. Aw, thank you for that personal note. That's very kind.
Yeah, really kind.
That means a lot. I feel like we try to avoid the negativity. So thank you for noticing that. And I feel like that makes me feel really warm and fuzzy inside. Okay.
Yeah. And which, by the way, to our prior point of our barrel picks and our Patreon community, over on Discord, that's how you get to the Discord through Patreon. And we've had other people say similar comments of they really appreciate how we're kind of devoid of negativity. You know, it doesn't matter what level you're at. We all start somewhere.
Well, and because I'm not a whiskey nerd. And so, like, if someone's going to shame me for not knowing stuff, like, shame on you.
Yeah.
And we're not going to have that in our Patreon community.
Yeah.
So we don't want that in our YouTube community either.
Right.
The end.
Yeah.
I have spoken.
So to the point of burnout. Great point. To the point of burnout, how do you...
I don't watch any Whiskey Tube.
Right.
I literally don't subscribe to our channel.
But what about...
Because I'm a horrible human being.
She's a great human being. What about whiskey in general, burnout? Because you're in the unique position where we have to drink things for the channel.
Yeah. Well, I think for me personally, we've gotten into a good rhythm of our filming schedule. And that's taken several years to figure out because there was a time when I was feeling burnt out of drinking. I felt like we were drinking too frequently for what my body liked. So we've figured that out. And honestly, I don't feel like I have burnout because we figured that out.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Was the rest? Yeah, I think for me,
you're more into like the Whiskey Tube, the Whiskey Nerd,
Yeah.
like fights and stuff like that. You're more into that. So how do you avoid?
Well, I'm
like,
not into the fights, but
no, you're more aware of.
Well,
them.
Again, I would not advise anybody to do this, but we spent years of our life and tens of thousands of our dollars to build a channel and community that would foster a good, welcoming attitude rather than engaging in social media forums. That's just what we did.
Yeah.
I mean, feel free, but
if you'd like to,
it's not for the faint of heart.
It's not cheap and it's not
easy.
Time, yeah.
But with that said, I will say, as far as whiskey goes, I usually only have a glass a night. Sometimes I might do a head-to-head, and there's plenty of nights that go by where I just want some tea, herbal tea or something like that, and I don't want whiskey.
Yeah.
So I just trust my instincts there as far as how I feel. As far as Whiskey Tube content goes, I have my channels that I follow, and I watch those channels specifically, and sometimes I get nerdy and watch other stuff as well.
And I feel
but it's
like
everything in moderation, right?
It's okay also, as far as Whiskey Tube content, to cull or go through and periodically purge YouTube channels of any genre that are no longer serving you, even if that means it's ours. Like I do that so much with my YouTube subscriptions. Is I will go through and unsubscribe, and then I'll resubscribe later on if I'm feeling like that content is applicable to me at that time. So just feel free to do that. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings. We don't know if you unsubscribe. Like no one will know. Just do what's best for you. Yeah.
And I will say, even over on Patreon, people that support over there, people drop. And, if somebody drops for whatever reason, people have things that happen in their lives. Like, this is a hobby that is amazing to me because it is self-limiting. You can only do so much before you put yourself in a bad spot.
Yeah.
However, I know I'm bent that way, and other people, you can get into a bad spot and get a little further than you should. And we always recommend drinking in moderation and taking it pretty easy. We are definitely sippers more than we are drinkers. We don't really sit around and drink, mainly because we don't like to feel terrible the next day.
Yeah, we're old.
Yeah.
I do want to address that, like, how do you deal with burnout without accumulating 300 plus bottles?
Yeah, we haven't figured that part out.
Well, that's a Josh thing, but like something that I have to tell him is that there's always more good whiskey coming down the pipe. Like, down the pike, or is it pipe? I think it's down the pike.
It's down the pipe.
Whatever that saying is, there's always more coming. So if you miss the opportunity to get something, you're going to be okay. And I have to tell you this constantly. There's always more good whiskey coming. So don't feel like you have to get it all and you have to get it all right now. You can slowly build a collection if that's something you want to do. You can slowly build a collection over time. And if you want to have a certain amount of bottles as your limit, then do it. But you don't have to have it all right now. And this is something that I'm saying to you guys, but I'm also saying to this man.
Thanks, Mom.
Okay, thank you for your question. Okay. Where'd that go?
We'll find it later.
Okay. Mike M4432 asks, can you discuss some of the shady ongoings of the bourbon industry, aka hype, low inventory, secondary crazy prices, shenanigans, etc.? Why is the bourbon industry so crazy, and is the crazy about to end? The last year or so, the amount of bourbon sales have been going down year over year. Did they kill the golden goose with the greedy marketing and shortages? Well, I mean, there is the whole supply and demand thing, which I think the whiskey supply demand increased during 2020. Yep. And I think we are just now finally seeing the demand go lower than the supply. Right. And we're kind of on the tail end of that. Yeah.
It's just pure economics. I mean, really, supply and demand. I mean, there are people that have gone crazy chasing everything and getting involved in the hobby, but every hobby has that at some stage, especially when it's on the uptick.
Yeah.
As far as greedy marketing goes, I would say it's less greedy marketing and it's more just opportunistic people trying to buy bottles that they're not even intending to drink just to turn them for $1.
Yeah, I don't think it's...
That's part of it as well.
I don't think it's companies that are doing greedy marketing. I think
they're just making whiskey. I mean...
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, nobody cared about bourbon, and it would have gone under if it had not been for Japan supporting the market and restaurants. And then now, here we are, and bourbon's booming. It's just a cyclical thing. As far as some of the shady ongoings, I want to put a link to a live stream and a couple of videos in the video description below that we've done in the past that I think would be interesting watches for you and anybody else that's interested. But for the most part, I mean, it really is like big demand. The prices are up. In 2020, everybody was getting free money given to them, and they were using that for...
and people had a lot of time,
right.
and they could do more research on things and get into more hobbies than they have time for now, necessarily in 2024.
And I'm happy we're on the downward curve of that. I don't think it's as much the bubble bursting. I just think we hit a spike because of some really weird circumstances, and I think we're seeing a little bit of a market correction that we're going to experience in the next few years to come. And I think that's a welcome thing.
Yeah.
So
I think
the future's bright.
It will level out. It's just going to take some time. It's always slower than kind of like the housing market. It hit a peak and it's leveling out in some areas and it's taking a while in others.
Right.
So thank you for your question, though. It's a great question. Oh, is this our last question?
Is it? Okay.
We have one more. Aaron, love that. E asks, other than Josh saying vice versa, what pet peeves do you guys have? Also, any whiskey pet peeves?
All right, so it's a two-part question.
Vice versa.
Pet peeves and then whiskey pet peeves. Let's start with whiskey. Do you have whiskey pet peeves?
I think my whiskey pet peeves are people talking down to other people for not liking something that they like. Because taste is subjective. So, yeah, I think that gets on my nerves when people talk down about, like, oh, you should like this. Like, you should like what you like. The end.
That's wise words.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say my whiskey pet peeves are, it kind of aligns with one of my personal pet peeves. I just don't like rude people. I don't like people who treat other people poorly. And again, to the point of our Patreon community and our Discord that's connected over there, we don't tolerate that kind of stuff. And over in, Facebook land, where a lot of social media groups happen around bourbon, that seems to be more the norm or more the rule than the exception. And we don't like that. So I don't typically get on those very much unless it's to check something very specifically. So yeah, I mean, that would probably be one of my only whiskey pet peeves. Generally rudeness and like know-it-all type of attitudes.
Yeah.
Inclusiveness. Oh, I would say this is borderline pet peeve in whiskey. There's IYKYK. If you know, you know. People will put that.
I mean, that's a thing in a lot of things.
It is, but a lot of times I feel like in the whiskey space, it gets wrapped up in a term of exclusion. I'm an inclusive person. I want everybody to come together and have a good time and share good whiskey. That's what we're about over here. Good people, good whiskey.
Yep.
And it's more like, if you know, you know. Like, I know about this bottle, but you don't. But I'm not going to tell you. Don't tell me if
gatekeeping.
Don't tell me if you know, you know. Tell me about the bottle. Like, tell me why I should know.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, personal pet peeves. This could be even more fun. What are yours? Whether it be me, things I do, or just in general pet peeves.
I don't know if I want to answer this.
No, we're on the spot now. We'll do it live.
How about you go?
No, you go. I'm drinking water.
Well, gosh, this is hard. I don't want to say things that might hurt people's feelings. I guess I'll go with you because you can take it. Okay. And you know this about yourself.
Oh, is that we talk about everything.
You bury the lead.
Yeah,
and that bothers me because I'm like trying to listen to him have a conversation with me and I'm like searching for the point. And I say, Josh, just get to the point. And just like that. And he'll do it, but I'm trying to like teach him just to get to the point faster so that way I don't have to spend most of the conversation searching for what he's trying to say.
I like a little bit of anticipation. I like the build-up.
No,
I like the story.
But like in like the whole...
regular everyday life, you don't need build-up.
I took like a master class in how to make PowerPoint presentations from a business perspective. Yeah. And when you do that, you tell the people what you're going to tell them. then you tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. And that's how I need you to tell me things. Tell me what you're going to tell me, and then tell me what you just told me.
Yeah. She tells me this about the content that we produce here as well.
He knows his pet peeve, but it is a big pet peeve.
Yeah.
Your turn. I'm done. I feel like hot and bothered now. I didn't want to say that in public. Like, now the whole world knows.
Well, I would say that to the point of language, vice versa is yours. For me, it's I could care less. When people say I could care less.
I couldn't care less.
If you just take a second to think about it for 1 second, if you're literally saying you could care less, you are indicating that you do care about what's happening.
Right, because then you actually could care even less.
You could care even less. But if you say I couldn't care less, that's very descriptive as to I literally could not care less about what you're saying.
I get that.
So that's my language pet peeve. I have many driving pet peeves. For those that don't know, I'm a professional driver. I drive for UPS.
I have another one.
Okay, I drive professionally for UPS and have for many, many years. I've been employed there for 22 years, and I've driven for most of those at the company. So, the professionally trained driver, I cannot stand people being polite in traffic because outside of traffic,
it's unsafe.
It's what do you tell me all the time?
To be unclear is to be unkind.
Right. And when you're being unclear in driving, not following the rules of the road and the right of way, you create a lot of unclarity. The rules of the road and the right of way exist so that everybody can just do what they're supposed to do
and be safe while doing it.
And be safe. And so you can know what to expect with other people.
So like when someone stops in the middle of a driving lane to let someone in, that is unsafe because the person behind them thinks, oh, we're going straight.
Or they stop, and then the next person in the next lane beside them doesn't stop, and then somebody pulls out because they think they can get out, and then they get T-boned. Don't be polite in traffic. Just follow the right of way, and that takes care of everything.
This is a hill he will die on.
Oh my goodness, it drives me nuts. And we live in the South. We live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Zipper in when you merge.
Zipper merge.
Zipper. Don't try to cut it. Like just zipper in. Everyone gets where they're going.
But look, we're in the South. We're in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's generally people are very polite, but don't be polite in traffic. Just don't be rude.
Don't be rude.
Don't be rude.
Just follow the rules.
Just follow the rules the right
They're
way.
there for a reason.
Right. They will keep you safe. They'll keep me safe. They'll keep everybody around you safe.
Remember,
be cool.
Driver's ed rules.
Right.
Just do that.
Yes. So that's a big one for me. That's probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
But actually, that's not the biggest one because the real biggest one is...
You have a lot of pet peeves.
Oh, I do. The biggest one is a general rudeness, a general lack of consideration for other people.
I feel like you've spoken to this one. That was a whiskey pet peeve.
It was, but it also applies to regular life too. And by the way, I'm just going to be clear. A lot of the things that are my biggest pet peeves at 40 years old are the things that I used to do at 20 years old. And I realize how inconsiderate and rude I was to other people.
Gotcha.
Like
driving your loud cars and thinking everyone was looking at you when they were just looking at you because they were annoyed that you were so loud.
Yeah.
With your car. At
midnight through a neighborhood. And now I'm like, my kid's trying to sleep. I'm trying to sleep. And you're driving around with a loud exhaust by my house at 10 o'clock and get off my yard while you're at it, you know? Like, it's just I was clueless as a 20-year-old.
Simmer down.
Hang on. I was clueless as a 20-year-old, and I thought I was cool. But now in adulthood, like later on in life, I realized I was just being a pest. And my stepdad, growing up, he used to call me a punk kid. And I was like, that would get under my skin. It would really make me mad. And now in adulthood, I realized he was dead right. I was a straight up punk kid. And punk kids get on my nerves, okay? And also, adults who act like punk kids get on my nerves more than punk kids get on my nerves.
Fair, because you're adults, you should know better.
And it's just, and I don't mean that in a bad way or whatever. I'm just saying there are people who live their life kind of as the center of their own world, and they don't take any level of consideration for other people into account at all. You know, that could manifest itself in 100 different ways. 100 different ways, and all of them annoy me.
I will say, I don't
have to be specific about it.
Living in Nashville, I will have a specific example of this. Living in Nashville, Tennessee, you go downtown on Broadway. It's a very big place where tourists like to go. And when people just dead stop in the middle of a sidewalk, same thing with driving. Like you're going forward, and then people just stop, and they're like, I will run into you, and that's like. Just be aware. You're around a bunch of people that are walking in this direction. Don't just stop. Like, pull over to the side. Like, walk over to the side. Like, That does get me.
Yeah,
I get that.
We're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
We're all in this life together.
You're not in your own Cinderella story. There are people around. Just be aware.
Yeah, just be cool. Yeah.
Okay, this is like going off of
right, anyways,
I do have one more pet peeve.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is more applicable to my work.
Okay.
So I write for my profession, and people, the whole there, like
simple grammar.
Yeah, simple grammar things bother me. Like the your, apostrophe re, those grammar things do tend to bother me when it comes to business writing. Like if you're a professional writing me an email from a business perspective, please have proper grammar. If you're texting me, have all the grammar mistakes you want. If you're a person who knows me in real life, you know my texting is not.
It's atrocious. It is awful.
It's like,
I need a translator.
It's like that whole thing, like the photographer or the cobbler's children had no shoes. Like I spend all my time fixing grammar mistakes at work that when I'm texting you on a personal level, I can't be bothered. I just text and I send. So that's fine if you have typos when you're texting me personally. But if you're a business colleague emailing more often than not another business colleague, let's have proper grammar, shall we? The end.
Let's also subscribe to the channel while we're here and at it. Down there, hit the thumbs up if you like the video, if you like these Q&As. Again, leave us questions for upcoming ones. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for today. Be good to each other. Thank you for listening to our ramble. Thank you for hanging in here. Yes, we appreciate you, and be good to each other. Until next time, cheers. Cheers.